welcome. Okay, so we'll start with an intention. Seems to be a good place to start. So take a look and see for yourself, why are you here? Are you just hoping to pass the time? Because if you're really honest, you'll notice a lot of the time that's your intention, right? I mean, just to pass the time, you want to get through this time, and then there might be some hope of some future attainment, but this comes back to that same intention: just pass the time, get through this time, hope that some future time will have something better. And so the next question I'll ask is, how satisfied are you with that? And I'll suggest, if you're really honest, then you'll immediately recognize that you're not satisfied with that, not in the least, that actually is miserable. So we learn to mistake a kind of excitement for something desirable. I think excitement means it's desirable. So if we get a kind of thrill, then we think, oh, that must be good. And we learn to generate that kind of false thrill or that excitement through this hope of something in the future. And then we're just trying to pass the time until that future. And what I'm suggesting is that if you look, you'll see that that's the definition of misery, and that's what you've been doing through really no fault of your own. I mean, I'm not blaming you. I'm just pointing it out. but it's the way of the world. It's the way we've been taught because nobody knows. So it's just the ignorant leading the ignorant, the blind leading the blind. And so we learned to be ignorant because we were taught by those who were ignorant. It's not their fault either. They were also taught by those who were ignorant, and they were taught by those who were ignorant. So it's nobody's fault until it's pointed out. And then, if you see it, well, then now, sorry to have to say it, but now it's your fault. Because once you have that knowledge, then what are you going to do? Are you going to keep doing the same thing and expecting that you're going to get different results? So that's why I'm pointing it out. So see that this chronic biding time is misery. It generates anxiety, and the anxiety worsens because it's like treading water. You tread water for a little while and you're hoping, that you're out at sea, your ship has sunk, and you start treading water, hoping that the rescue will come at some point in the future. And you start daydreaming and think, oh, isn't that going to be so nice when they get here and they'll take me up on board their ship, and they'll get me a towel and I can dry off, and maybe there'll be something to warm me up, and they'll give me food, and maybe they'll be really nice people. Maybe I'll meet some new friends. Maybe they'll take me somewhere exciting. But then a lot of time passes and you start to become tired, and you start to see sharks coming near. Now you're starting to be a little fearful, starting to have doubt, wondering, what am I really doing here? So it's like treading water. We're just biding time, hoping that something in the future is going to fix it for us. But we've been training ourselves in the wrong way because, as I said, we've learned, or we've been taught, and then we've taken that on and trained ourselves how to mistakenly believe that a cheap thrill is desirable. And so we're just leaping from one cheap thrill to another, one daydream to another, in hopes that somehow that's going to keep us alive long enough until one of them actually materializes and we get to step into that daydream. But see, what happens is, even if that daydream does materialize, because it has happened, I mean, surely you can recognize it in your life. It's happened, that the daydream has materialized, but it didn't do it for you because it can't. Now, why is that? Because it remains a daydream. It's only ever a daydream. How can the daydream fulfill you? It can't. So this practice of biding time and daydreaming is actually the misery. But what we're terrified of is to wake up and to really come face to face with the reality as it is, which reality as it is by definition, it can't be dressed up. I mean, if we dress it up, it's not reality as it is. It's another daydream. It's just another facade. But here is reality. So when you finally recognize how miserable it has been, biding time, treading water, daydreaming, then you're left with no choice. Now, I'm saying this to point it out to you so that you can recognize it in your own experience and see how, just look right now, how this habit of biding time and daydreaming, hoping of some better future. Oh, always hoping it will be very soon, of course, hoping it will be in the next second or at least in 5 minutes, at the very least by tomorrow, or God forbid, maybe next week, but hopefully no longer than that. Let's see how that is the habit, and see that it's completely unfulfilling. And not only is it unfulfilling, it takes that to an extreme so that it's depleting. It's I don't know, it's degrading. There's something about it that's just profoundly insulting. And so it leaves you feeling insulted and degraded. And then it's a vicious cycle because you don't know what else to do. So you do more of that. But what I'm suggesting is there's another way. So what might that be? So what that might be is something unknown. But just because it's unknown doesn't mean that it's not real. And when I say unknown, I mean unknown to the mind. It can't be objectified. It can't be thought of. It can't be described. But that doesn't mean that it's, as I say, it doesn't mean it's not real. It is real. It's the most real, the only real thing there is. It's just that it cannot be understood in the normal way, in the habitual way, because the habitual way, again, is this biding time, daydreaming. So what is the daydream? Well, it's anything other than reality as it is, by definition. So it's all about ideas. It's all about hope. It's all about visions. It's all about thoughts. So what is it that's real that's not a daydream? What is that? No, I'll also suggest, by the way, that what is real is it's the remedy to what's false. So what's false is the daydream, the future, and by the way, at the same time, the past. So all of that is false. And you look and see, what does that include? Well, obviously that includes everything you can think of yourself, everything that anything that you could think about yourself, anything at all. So any self-concept, any self-image, all of that's included in what's false. No, what's real is the antidote to that. And what's real is none of those things. So you start to see where you've been looking for salvation and see that your pursuit of salvation is what it is that actually generates the perception that you need salvation. And in your pursuit of that salvation, you overlook what the true remedy is. You dismiss it because it flies under the radar because you can't understand it. You can't grasp it. You can't convert it into an image or a thought. It always eludes any attempt to do so. And even now, as you perhaps try to understand, what am I talking about? What am I pointing to? And you keep trying and trying and trying and trying, and you'll again notice what you're doing is you're treading water. All of this trying is for what? It's to get something. When will you get it? Do you have it now? You have to admit you don't have it now. So then you think you're going to get it in the future. I'm pointing it out not to be mean, although it can sound a little mean. It's a little bit brutal, I suppose. But I'm just pointing to so I'm not suggesting that I have transcended this, by the way. I'm able to point it out because I recognize it. So don't make the mistake of thinking that this person here has got it and you don't have it, but you can get it. No, nobody has it. If somebody tells you they have it, don't believe them. Nobody has it. Nobody can have it. Nobody can possess it. It's an impossibility. So see how slippery it is. See how quickly this habit comes back in through the back door. You recognize that it's come back in and you escort it out through the front door, and then it comes right back in through the back door. Just keeps showing up and you keep missing it is the way that it seems to work. But now you're catching on. Now you're seeing a little bit. You're seeing how hopeless it is. Absolutely hopeless. Really, honestly hopeless. I'm not lying to you. It's not a funny joke. It's not clever. It's not anything like that. I'm telling you the truth. It's completely hopeless. There is no way that you will win in this game of treading water because you are in the ocean surrounded by sharks and there are no ships in sight and you're tired and it's time to be honest. So look right now to see all of this grasping, It's desperation. I need to get it. I'm almost there. I think I've almost got it. I'm going to get it. What does he mean? If only I could understand. It's not fair, or he doesn't understand how hard my life is, or it's easy for him to say, or any of these other kinds of thoughts, beliefs, notions, concepts, and just see that all of it is the same. So it's just all the same. So we can level the playing field. And it's a great simplifier. It really is. If you accept this, if you see this, it's just a pointing. So it's not a belief. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm pointing it out for you to look and see in your own experience. When you see the truth of this in your own experience, then you're just confronted with the reality. You see this absolute hopelessness that you cannot get it and you can't stop trying to get it. So here you are, you just see I'm treading water in the ocean, surrounded by sharks, and there are no ships in sight. Nobody even knows that your ship sunk. Why are they going to come rescue you? And anyway, they're all busy. Isn't it so? I mean, everybody's busy. You think, oh, this person, they care. This person's going to help me. How many times have you been through that? Only to find out that it's just yet again. It's another shark is what it is. So you see how hopeless it is. And when you see how hopeless it is, chances are you don't feel good about this. So don't expect that you're going to feel good. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I can't rule it out, but don't expect that you should feel good or that you should like the way that you feel upon seeing this. This isn't about that. Your idea of what it is to feel good is totally wrong. So that's just another thing to see, is that your idea of what it is to feel good is just this cheap thrill, just the excitement of some future attainment, just another hope. That's all it is. It's just, ooh, this might be it. It's like you've been looking out on the horizon, and every time you think you start hallucinating some little blip on the horizon, you think, ooh, that might be it. That might be a ship coming to rescue me. But it's just a hallucination. There's no ship coming to rescue you. So you've done that a million times, a billion times. How many? So many times. Finally, how about the one thing that you haven't done is just be here. See again, you can't stop it. All the treading water continues, all of the desperation continues, all of the hope continues, but finally there's some sort of something. You can't quite say what it is. It defies understanding. It defies everything because it's new. Actually, it's something fresh. And it should also be terrifying. It should be at once the most attractive and the most repulsive thing. Like, you can't not look at an accident. It's kind of like that. It's the most attractive and the most repulsive thing at the same time. It's kind of like that. Something new, something fresh, something here, something effortless, something that you don't have to do anything for. You don't have to imagine. You don't have to hope. You don't have to project. It's completely unconditional. It has nothing whatsoever to do with any future attainment. It doesn't depend upon any future conditions. It doesn't depend upon fixing yourself. It doesn't depend upon getting rid of anything. It doesn't depend upon succeeding. So now, hopefully, you can start to see what a complete sham it's all been, all this treading water. You start to maybe ask the question, what on earth was I hoping for? What a enormous lie it's been. This whole trip of I'm going to get somewhere. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get rescued. And exhausting. And for what? For nothing. For nothing at all. Just because you learned that a cheap thrill is the goal. That's it. But see directly in your own experience right now how this sequence of cheap thrills has just been devastating, exhausting. It's just gutted you, exhausting to the core. It's like you've never been able to just breathe. You've never been able to just be because of this succession of one cheap thrill after another, all the while calling that getting somewhere. But now you look honestly, and I'm inviting you to look directly at your own experience. This is not about thinking, it's about looking. Thinking's allowed, of course, but it's not, don't waste your effort trying to stop thinking, but don't fixate on the thoughts because they're circular. They just spin around and around in the known. And they all depend upon this false person who's got a past and who has a future. But see through that right now. Just see what is actually here, and you'll see it's not what you thought, not anything that needs to be defended, not anything that needs to be polished, not anything that needs to be protected, not anything that needs to survive. So, and then you might start to experience a relief. And that relief, depending on your familiarity with it, or God knows what other variables, either it will be clearly a relief or it will be barely visible as a relief. And mostly you'll just be experiencing a lot of discomfort, agitation, fear, anxiety, worry. So it could be anywhere on that spectrum, and that's okay. But just see the relief. Even if it's just for half a second, just spot the relief and see that that relief is here. It's now. It's not at a distance. It's not in some future hope of being rescued by that fantasy ship. It's not in some fantasy of befriending the sharks, being taken to the shark kingdom and made king of the sharks. It's not any of that. It's just in this raw existence as it is here. Maybe start to see again what a complete sham it's been, because when you catch this glimpse of this raw existence here now, you notice that all along you've been assuming the primacy of this person, that this one must be protected, this one must survive, this one must succeed. And you see that you've never known who this one was. And in fact, when you look now, really in the bare existence of what is, not what you think about it, but just what is, you realize whatever I am is unknown. It's completely unknown. And so perhaps you can then just allow yourself to be very curious about that. And just allow that curiosity to draw you in. So notice that curiosity arises out of not knowing. If you think you know, you're not curious. You can't be curious if you think you know. So this curiosity arises out of not knowing. So notice that you can allow that, and dare I say, even cultivate that. I know that's a dangerous notion, but just play along and see. Could you even cultivate this curiosity, this sense of, what is this? For the first time, I actually don't know, and I know that I don't know, and I'm really curious. And just let yourself be drawn in by that curiosity, so that you start to just perhaps notice a kind of, relaxation. This is relaxing to health, wealth, and happiness after all. It's not what you think of relaxation, but it's a relaxation. It's the essence of relaxation, this curiosity. So you don't need to try and force anything. You don't need to try and change anything. Just see that you don't know and really be interested in this way in which you are just drawn in. It's not, you're not trying to box it in. You're not trying to fit it into some definition of what's already known. There's this authentic recognition now. I don't know. Can you see that? Can you recognize in your own experience that you really don't have the faintest clue about anything at all, not in the least? everything that you thought you knew was all based on false assumptions, fantasy projections into the past and the future, and all the while here, the only reality that actually is this right now, this bare, raw existence, you were overlooking it. And now that you actually just take a look, you have to recognize, I don't know anything at all, nothing, not the first thing, not at all. So what a complete lie all of that was. I don't know anything about what is real, nothing. And naturally, what has to arise from this is this curiosity. And just let that curiosity remain curious. Don't close it down. Notice that this is, in this instant right now, this is freedom. We need somebody to point that out, because at first we don't recognize it, because we thought freedom would be a really big, cheap thrill. And this is not a cheap thrill, and so we don't recognize it. But just see, you thought freedom would be a really big, cheap thrill. Really big. The biggest cheap thrill had to be. But see that this right now, this is freedom. Just see any attempt of the mind to try and reconcile this present reality with the notion of freedom. Just see that's an unnecessary waste of time. What I'm saying is, see, this is like kindergarten. Okay, so now you're in kindergarten, and you're being taught the meaning of something, and before this you had some other idea, and now you can argue, but just accept that no, this what's being pointed out is reality. Your idea of freedom is incorrect. It was based on ignorance through no fault of your own, as I've already pointed out. It's what you learned because you were taught by those who were ignorant. We all were. Because we were dreaming, and the dream is ignorance. So you don't need to fall into this thing of beating yourself up because, how shameful that I was deluded and had this wrong idea of things. No, you just were dreaming. The nature of the dream is ignorance. In the dream, due to its nature, is ignorance. Of course, what's learned, what's taught, and what's learned is more ignorance. So yes, we were taught that freedom was something other than what freedom is, because the nature of the dream is to keep you lulled into dreamland. That's what it does, is it entrances. This isn't bad. We love trances. The trance isn't a problem. It's just that when we get lost in it. So here is this waking up from the trance, just to see, oh, it's a trance. Don't need to get rid of it. Don't need to break it. Don't need to fight with it. Don't need to argue with it. It's just a trance. I'm awake. Oh. And how do you wake up? You hear this message, this whispering from reality into the dream that says, this is freedom. Not what you thought freedom was. This right now, this is freedom. Can you recognize it? To not know genuinely, not, it's not a technique. You can't use it as a technique. You can't falsify not knowing. That's just more lies. But you can authentically recognize that you don't know. This authentic recognition that you don't know, you really honestly don't know. You don't know what this is. You don't know who you are. You don't know anything about anything at all in reality, which becomes perfectly obvious if you just look now. Just see now, not your thoughts about it, but just the bare reality. If you see this, naturally you recognize, I don't know. This is freedom. See it. See that this is freedom. No one to defend. Nowhere to get to. Nothing to achieve. No obligations. It's total freedom. Maybe you notice for the first time, there's space to be. So now, you may wonder, okay, what do I do with this? How do I make use of this? How do I hold on to this? How do I carry this over into my regular life that seems to be so problematic? Because let me remember now. What happens in my normal, oh yes, in my normal life, I'm depressed and anxious and worried and in pain and fearful. So how do I fix those problems with this insight? I mean, that's the big question that usually comes up in some form or another. And I'm pointing it out again, not because this person here has transcended it. That is, if you see, if that was the case, then everything I'm pointing to is a lie. Because then I'm saying, instead of pointing out what is real, I'm pointing out some conditional thing that maybe can be gained in the future when you arrive at the right conditions, when you finally transcend. But what I'm saying is no transcendence is necessary. Or put another way, you're already transcendent. You just didn't recognize it. You don't need to improve or change or fix or attain or anything. So I'm able to point it out because it's just what I recognize. So these doubts and questions arise, variations on the theme. What do I do with this? How do I make use of this? How do I fix my life with this insight? Because again, see, like, remember what I pointed out? Usher it out through the front door and it sneaks back in through the back door. See what happened? It just came back in through the back door. And it says, oh, I'm so tired treading water. When's that ship going to arrive? I think I just got some secret technique, some special insight that's going to let me get that ship here real quick so I can be rescued. And then there's some other part of the brain. It's amazing how many different voices are in there. Some other part of the brain that says, oh, you fool, don't you know? That's not it. Didn't you hear anything he just said? And then another part says, well, but that's not fair. I'm looking for a way out of this misery. I need a way to fix all these problems. If I don't have a way to fix all the problems will persist. Isn't that the point? It wants to know. Isn't that the point? Is that I can fix my problems? Because if I can't fix my problems, then I think I'm going to go somewhere else. I hear there's a tapping summit next week. I'm going to go do that. See, it's got plans already. It's got backup plans. What I'm going to do if this doesn't work. So notice, though, what's happening in these cases is that this, in other words, reality, which I've proposed is the antidote, we didn't really try it. We faked it. It's like you got the medicine, but you didn't take it because you were afraid of the bitter taste. And so you pretended to take it, you tossed it over your shoulder. And now you fooled everyone else, and you've almost fooled yourself into thinking, oh, but I tried it, and it just didn't work. It didn't work for me. So again, we just have to be honest and see what's happening. And just like I said, it's just, you can't get rid of it. You don't need to get rid of it. You just see that's what happens. It just keeps coming back over and over and over again. So it sneaks back in and it starts plotting for the future, daydreaming again. Oh, tomorrow is going to be a better day. Tomorrow, because I've got a plan for what I'm going to do. Or, of course, that can get very, when there's a great deal of desperation, then it's the same process, but it just sounds a little bit different. It says, tomorrow is hopeless. Every day is hopeless. It's always hopeless. But it doesn't really accept the true hopelessness because it's still hoping. It's like reverse psychology. It's hoping that the universe, quote unquote, is going to give it what it wants because it's doing some sort of whatever that is. Like if we can just pretend enough that, oh, it's so hopeless. Oh, it's so hopeless. Oh, I'm such a victim. Poor me, poor me. I never get a break. That the universe, quote unquote, will step in and say, oh, you poor soul, here you go. I'll help you out. See, it's all strategies. There's no way out of it. It's all one hope after another, more treading water. But every time you see it, this is the good news. Every time you see it, it is the gift of waking up happening. See, so in a sense, even though I'm poking fun at this notion of the universe intervening, in a sense, the universe is intervening every moment, every single moment, because it's whispering, saying, wake up, Look at how absurd this is, it says. Don't you notice what's happening? Don't you see it yet? How many times I've snuck back in through the back door every time you ushered me out, just so I could wake you up, it says. See, it does both at the same time. That's the thing. We talk about duality. I mean, this universe, this world of perception, it is dualistic. So it can have its cake and eat it too. It's both and. So it it can simultaneously be lulling us to sleep and waking us up. It's exactly the same thing. Lulling to sleep and waking up, they go together like this. It's one and the same. All that it depends upon is how you will take it. And I will suggest that's the one. I know people, this gets people's hackles up. So you say there's a choice. Yeah, there's one choice. The rest of the choices are totally false. What am I going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? That's all false. It appears that we can make those choices, but they're all false because actually they're all completely conditioned. There's no actual volition whatsoever there. It's completely, if you understand, if you were able to see all of the variables at play, all the factors, you would see it's absolutely 100% predictable. There's no volition whatsoever in any of those things. All of the anxieties and worries about, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I smoke the cigarette? Should I give up smoking cigarettes? All of that. And sorry, I mean, I don't mean to discourage you to give up smoking. Go, by all means, give up smoking. But it's, but that's all a sham. The one choice is, this moment, will you perceive it as lulling you to sleep or waking you up? And you can choose, I see this as waking me up. So then that means you wake up, and that waking up is just to recognize this bare reality now. And to see that you don't know anything. When you see that you don't know, what do I mean by you don't know? I mean, you don't actually know. Of course you can label things. I'm not saying you can't label things. Of course you can label things. But that's false. Just because you can label something, you think you know it? No. You can label yourself, you know your name, you know your age, you know where you were born, you know your parents, you know all of the things that you've done in life, all of your, you can list off your resume and everything, but you don't know yourself. You see, that's the thing. You can label, but you don't know. You can label, here's my glass jar, okay? It's been a while since I pulled this out, but you can give it a name, but you don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows this. Nobody. How is that possible? You can't know it. You just can label it. And the label stops you short. It gives you this cheap thrill of false power. I know, it says. No, I label is the truth. I label and I don't know. So see, beyond labels, what do you know? Nothing. All you can do is label. You say, well, you ask this question, who am I? Or what am I? And you just notice, what can you say of yourself? What am I? I am this person. Oh, that's a label. I am this body. Oh, that's a label. I am this ego. Well, that's a label. I am the brain. Well, that's a label. I'm a nervous system. That's a label. I'm a soul. Well, that's a label. I mean, on and on. You want to break it down into smaller parts, you can do that. I'm a collection of molecules. Oh, that's a label. I'm a quantum field. Oh, it's a label. But what, see how all those labels, they stop you short of the actual truth, which is that you don't know. They give you this false, cheap thrill of fake power because you can label. But this underlying anxiety is pointing to the truth, the reality, which is I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything at all. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I am. I don't know what anything is. I don't know anything. I don't even know where to begin. And the mind, of course, balks at that. The mind says that's unacceptable, but don't fall for that either. It's just more of the same game, more treading water, more labeling, more cheap thrills, more daydreams. Go right over the edge, right to the present reality, which is, I don't know. And then just notice this not knowing. And there's a second or two, maybe, of this kind of jump, this little startle within of what do I do? What do I do? How do I get a hold of this? How do I get my bearings? What do I do? Just let that pass and notice you're still here. You don't know what you are. You don't know what this is. You don't have any control. You don't have any power. You don't have any hope. You don't have any vision. You don't have any foothold. You don't have any bearing. You don't have anything at all. And yet you are here. What a shock. And then just stay shocked. And I'm telling you, this is freedom. And see it, see the reality of this as freedom. See that this is already the fulfillment that you've been seeking for without having to do anything or go anywhere or fix anything or figure anything out or achieve anything or anything at all. So we'll leave it at that for this formal portion today. And for those who are here live, we'll stay on for Q&A and see what questions you have.